The Rain Room.
Now this next match, I'm going to go to 1993, and we're in Barcelona, Spain. And again, we've got a tag team title match, as the champions, Money Incorporated, the team of Ted DiBiase and Erwin R. Shyster, take on the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott. Now Money Inc. enter the ring first, and IRS grabs the microphone, and he accuses Barcelona of being tax cheats. Nice little way to get the crowd riled up. However, I must admit, and this is one of the first notes that I wrote, is either the sound of the arena or the crowd themselves seems really, really quiet. It's a very odd atmosphere. And also the ring sounds really hard and really hollow, so when the referee's slapping the mat or the wrestlers are taking bumps, the sound is just really odd. I don't know, it kind of put me off a little bit. But in terms of the match itself, Rick Steiner and Ted DiBiase start things off. Rick hits a belly-to-belly suplex pretty quickly. Quick tags between Rick and Scott, work on the arm of Ted. And I mentioned the note about the crowd earlier. At this point, Jim Ross, who was on the commentary, makes reference as well, because he said Sheffield was bonkers, but Barcelona, it's like watching tennis. It's not really what you want to hear, and I'm not sure you should reference it. And then a really, really bizarre thing, and again, this is called out on commentary. The cameraman shoots the crowd, and you can see it's a pretty it's not a lively crowd, that's the wrong word. What am I trying to say here? It's a big crowd, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not getting my words confused, excuse me. So it's a big crowd. Obviously, the cameraman wants to show that this is a packed arena, but then he keeps showing that it's a packed arena, and the action continues in the ring. And even the commentators call out, it's like, what's going on in the ring? Like, let's get back to the match. I didn't time it, but if it was less than a minute, I would be surprised, where it's just looking at the crowd. Bobby Heenan has a couple of quite funny quotes. I may butcher these slightly, but this is what some of the things he wrote down. He says, "This is the worst cameraman I've ever seen. I'm looking at the backs of the heads of the Ramon family and the Lopez family." And then he says the Lopez family are eating rice and beans while the match finishes. I think Randy Savage says you should probably apologise for that last comment, but I found it quite amusing. But yeah, the cameraman was just looking at the crowd for ages and ages. But eventually we do get back to the match, and we've got Scott and IRS in there. And DiBiase trips Scott behind the referee's back, so IRS take advantage. Ted rams Scott into the steps and into the barricade, and they start to take control. Quick tags, a few double team moves, but Scott eventually fights back, tags in his brother Rick, Steiner lines, body slams all round, and then Scott is back in, signals for the Frankensteiner, throws DiBiase into the ropes, hits the Frankensteiner, 1, 2, but he doesn't get the 3, because just as the referee's about to count 3, IRS is in with one of the tag team belts, hits Scott on the back of the head, instant disqualification. The Steiners win the match, but they don't win the titles, because titles don't change hand on a disqualification, so they've been royally screwed right at the last minute there. This was a pretty decent 10-minute or so match that it was. Screwy finish, I think the crowd were thinking maybe we're going to get new tag team champions here, but just at the last minute that faint hope was taken away. It's pretty basic, it's two very good tag teams doing decent moves, but they don't really get into a high gear. So for that reason, I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. That's worth noting as well. I probably should have called this out at the start, but this show in Barcelona, Spain, is one of 21 shows across Europe that they did in 17 days. There were shows in the UK, in France, Spain, Germany, Italy, Belgium, and Ireland. And some of the other matches on this card, this particular night, included Undertaker versus Yokozuna, Tatanka versus Papa Shango, and Bret Hart versus Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, incidentally, cage match ratings are not available for this because of the length of matches or the lack of votes, but Bret Hart versus Bam Bam Bigelow was voted 7.5 on cage match, so that could be one to check out. And I believe it would be part of the European matches special that's on the WWE Network currently. So that will definitely be one that's worth checking out. But for Money Inc. versus the Steiner Brothers, it's a 5 out of 10.
The Rain Room.